What's up, duelists? This is a deck profile I've been wanting to bring you guys for over 6 months now. This is a deck that I've been working on behind the scenes that I think is incredibly powerful. It's very good against all of the top 3 decks in Edison format right now. It's not weak to deck dev. It has all the sauce, it has all the new techs, and it's all in max rarity, which is awesome as well. Maybe I'll put a little price tally thing here on the side or on the just covering the cards. No, I'm just kidding. And then we're going to show some tournament gameplay with the deck. You know the vibes. If you guys want to compete in Edison format at the highest level and you want to do it at RBET or whatever, make sure and check the description below for signups to RBET LA February 15th and 16th. There are 2 RBETs happening that weekend. It's a back-to-back RBET weekend. It is going to be a blast. So don't miss out on that action. All right, let's get into the deck profile. As you can tell, this is an Ancient Gear deck. This is my own special Ancient Gear build. This is a deck that appeared, I think, in 2022. It topped the first Deck Devastators tournament and then kind of disappeared into irrelevance ever since then, but it's been one of my favorite decks since then. At first, I was a hater. At first, I was a doubter, and after playing it for the last few years, both competitively and for fun, it's easily one of my favorite decks in the format and one of the fastest OTK decks in the format. Let's get right into things. The first thing I want to show you guys are 3 copies of Ancient Gear Beast. This is the most important boy. He's a good dog. I want to show you 3 different versions of this card so it can kind of give you an idea of what I like from different prints. This first version here, this is the North American First Edition Ultimate Rare. You can tell there's not much texturing on the foil. It doesn't look as good. It looks very subtle, still pretty, still gorgeous, still maximum rarity, but not as good. Now the next one is English, but it is Euro print. You can see there's some texturing to the gear behind him. There's some texturing to his foiling. The print is darker. The colors around are more saturated. There's more defined blues in the card as well. Infinitely better looking, a little bit more rare, a little bit more difficult to find these Euro print English, only printed in the UK. And then the last I want to show you is my favorite of the 3, and this is the Korean Ultimate Rare. These are incredibly hard to find. You can only find graded ones on English websites as far as I know. They go for quite a bit, and yeah, they look infinitely better. And this just shows the difference in detail between the OCG prints and even the nicer English Euro prints. It is night and day. These are just incredibly clean and so much nicer. So I have a huge preference for the OCG Ultimate Rares, especially for these older print cards. They look fantastic. Got to play 3 copies of this. If you don't know what this card does, it's a normal summon for free with Gear Town in play. It negates Raikou, it negates Sangan. It permanently negates things like Plague, Vayu, Treeborn Frog, all that good stuff. 2000, great stats. Can't be Mirror Force, can't be Deprisoned, can't be anything else. Very, very strong card. Play the full 3. It gives you free wins in a lot of situations. Helps you play through Battle Recruiters too, which is deck struggles with, as well as DD Warrior Lady. So 3 copies of that guy. The next Ancient Gear monster that I do actually play, I know some people don't play this guy, but I do play one of, is the Ancient Gear Golem. And as you can see here, I am favoring the OCG Ultimate Rares. They look unbelievable. I don't even know if you can see the detailing on that foiling. Of course you can. This is a brand new camera, by the way. We're in our YugiTuber era. We are going to be showing off max rarity cards in the finest here. Hopefully doing some 4K stuff soon, but this will just be a regular HD recording as of right now. But yeah, beautiful, beautiful cardboard here, the Ancient Gear Golem. 1 tribute with the Gear Town out, a Monster Reborn for the Machina Fortress, and also a very important card because we are playing the Future Fusion. So we'll get to that in a second. And then the last Ancient Gear monsters, which you do need to play the full 3 of, is the Ancient Gear Gajiltron Dragon, the Gajillionaire Dragon. I'm using the Ultimate Rares, the Japanese Ultimate Rares. As you can see, they are immaculate. These cards look fantastic. I cannot recommend using anything else. And just side note, I could rant for like 80 million years as to whether or not the OCG cards should be legal in the United States at North American events. But I think everybody in the comment section is going to be able to handle that for me. And hopefully looking to bring OCG legality to RBET sometime in the near future because, god damn, not being able to play these is crazy. The reason you play the full 3 is it's never really that dead. It's a Monster Reborn from Machina Fortress, and the third one will come up for certain OTK setups. Speaking of Machina Fortress, I gotta shout out my boy Sonny, aka the world champion of Edison format, the current world champion of Edison format, for hooking me up with these simplified Chinese ultimate rare Machina Fortresses. These cards are such a bitch to find. I don't get that focus on it. Incredibly difficult to find cards in the United States. You can't even Google a picture of these, but yeah, Sonny was able to pick some up in China and help get them all the way to your boy for this deck profile. So shout out to Sonny, the GOAT, for real, for real. These are the bread and butter for your pressure. They help you play through Honest, Kalu, all sorts of things. You can pitch any level machine to summon it from your hand because you just pitch itself with it and it adds up to 8. And then you can bring it back with, I believe, at least 5 of the monsters in this deck from the graveyard. So it's a repeatable threat. It helps you pop a lot of stuff. It's great turn 1 pressure. It leads to OTKs, all sorts of beautiful things. And damn, ultimate rare, all ultimate rares all day, baby. The camera isn't really focusing super well on this guy, but yeah, it's the simplified Chinese. It's one of the first cards ever printed in Chinese, actually. According to Sonny, they just started printing cards in like 2020, 2021, something like that. But yeah, anyway, moving on. 1 Machina Force. We are using the Prismatic Secret Rare. This card is gorgeous. You can't summon this card, so the fact that you probably can't read and understand this doesn't even matter. You can't summon it. It's just used as a searchable Monster Reborn for Machina Fortress. That's the only reason you use this card. But let me tell you, that comes up a lot, so you definitely want to play 1 copy. You don't want to play 2 copies because it can kind of brick alongside all your other Monster Reborns, and you can search it, but you definitely want to play the 1 copy. Moving on. Speaking of the way to search it, triple Machina Gear Frame. This guy doesn't have a great rarity, I'm going to be honest, but the Super Firsts are a classic. They're from the Structure deck. They look pretty cool. Yeah, this guy searches for all 3 of the Machina monsters. Oh, spoiler alert, we are playing a 3rd Machina monster in this build. But yeah, it searches for all 3 of the Machina monsters. Usually you're searching for Fortress first if you don't already have it. And then late game, if you top deck him, you're probably searching for Force as a way to just get a free Monster Reborn. And then the last Machina monster we are playing is we're playing the 1 Machina Peacekeeper. He's a 1 Machina Peacekeeper. You can see here we're using the OCG. It's not going to cut across super well because of the lighting and everything, but it has a really nice foil bleed that the English copies don't have. So that's why I really, really like the Japanese super rares for the Machina Peacekeeper. This card can be searched with Machina Gear Frame. It helps you defend your, Gear Gajiltron Dragons, your Gear Beasts, that sort of thing. And you can use it to search for Gear Frame and get access to your Machina monsters if you don't already have it. So it's kind of like an extra way to get access to your Machina monsters. Let's say you go Gear Town, summon out the Gear Gajiltron Dragon, normal summon this card, and then equip it to the Gear Gajiltron Dragon. Your opponent has to deal with a 3,000 monster that's protected by destruction, that can't be Mirror Force or deprisoned, and then when they do deal with it, this guy pops, and then he gets the Gear Frame, and then you get the Fortress, and then you're currently cooking. So this guy works really well in this deck. I do side him out a fair bit, but I definitely recommend starting the 1 copy. And then the last 3 monsters in the deck, we are going to be playing 1 Scrap Recycler. I'll get into him in a second, but yes, we are playing 1 Scrap Recycler. This is just like the quality difference between the OCG foiling. You can see how, well, let me just put it in the center there. See how clean and how difficult it is to scratch the OCG foiling? And then look at this. This is the new TCG foiling. It's already all scratched up. This was a near mint card straight from the pack. Just putting it in the sleeve scratched it up. That's how low quality these are. Even look at the different colors. You can even see the different colors on the cards. This one is much darker, much more saturated, much warmer. This one looks lifeless. It looks almost fake. The new TCG prints, can't say I'm a fan. There's one exception. We'll get into that. Scrap Recycler is important. He can send Machina Fortress. He can also send the next monster and last monster in this deck, which is Cyber Dragon. Super, super important. Cyber Dragon. These are the OCG CRV Ultimate Rares. Shout out SoCal Retro Ukes for hooking it up with one of these. These are, god damn, they're pretty. They look so much better than the English versions. Even the Europrint English versions pale in comparison to the Japanese CRV Ultimates. They just look fantastic. Can't recommend anything other than these, honestly. If you're going max rarity, just get the nicest looking cards imaginable. But yeah, Scrap Recycler can send Cyber Dragon. He can also send Machina Fortress to get you access to Machina, so he's kind of your 5th way to get Machina Fortress. And then later in the game, if you've used a gear frame, you can send another gear frame, and then he can cycle himself. So he can get you another draw, and he can like run into Raikos and stuff favorably. Pretty good little card. I do side him out a bit, but he's pretty important for the deck to run smoothly. Between him, Peacekeeper, and 3 gear frames, you have 5 really strong summons on turn 1 going first, which is pretty important. So yeah, I like that a lot. Also, Scrap Recycler helps with a card later on, which I'll mention once we get to it. That's it for the monsters. I believe there's only like 18. Let me count real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Yes, 18 monsters. I'm not cutting that out. I'm not cutting that out. I swear I know how this deck works. There's only 18 monsters, but that's all you need, because a lot of your spells also act as monsters. One of those spells, well, the first of these spells is going to be Terraforming. We are using the German Ultimate OTS rares. Shout out to Swagger, Yu-Gi-Oh! You guys may know him as Juan, aka Swagger, for trading me these. These are the Land for Min German Terraformings. Very misogynistic, very based. Yeah, they search you for any field spell. Best card in the deck. Really, really broken card. Not much to say other than it's incredibly powerful. The main card you're going to be searching for is going to be Gear Town. We are going to be using the Ultimate Rares, Japanese. They look fucking incredible. I wish I could show you guys the detail on these, but god damn, they are amazing. Really, really beautiful looking cardboard here. 3 copies, never less. This card is fucking fantastic. It lets you tribute summon Gear Town monsters or Ancient Gear monsters for 1 less tribute, and then when it's destroyed, you can special summon an Ancient Gear from your deck that can be special summoned. The only one in our deck that can be special summoned is the Ancient Gear Gajiltron Dragon, so that's the only one you can bring out. But in Edison format, there is the ruling where if you have a Gear Town activated and you set your own Gear Town, your Gear Town will be destroyed by game mechanic, and it will not miss timing. It will special summon Ancient Gear Gajiltron Dragon from your deck. So you can proc your own Gear Towns by setting your own monsters, basically. Or not monsters, setting your own field spells over the top of it. Man, it's hard to do these in one take. I'm not gonna lie, it's hard to do these in one take, but I ain't editing this shit, you know? One take, that's all we need. That's all we need. And for the last field spell in the deck, we are playing 1 Mausoleum of the Emperor. Again, going for the classic Japanese super rare here. I think there might be a foiling in English. I'm not really sure, but this is just the nicest looking one to me personally. The fire there looks really cool in the foil, so yeah, big fan of this card. This lets you summon out any of your boys, even Machina Fortress, etc., and just lets you go for that final push for games. So sometimes you'll have like 2 Gear Towns and a Mausoleum, and you'll have a big dude in your hand. That's an OTK setup. Activate 1 Gear Town, set 1, get a 3K. Activate this Gear Town, set the Mausoleum, get a 3K. Flip this, pay 2K, summon your big guy, and then attack for 8,000. Or 1K if it's Ancient Gear Beast. This card is just an extra copy of this. You have to be really careful using this card in some matchups, some like obscure matchups, that your opponent doesn't use it against you. So yeah, you have to be careful. Like if you have it turn 1, you usually don't want to play it turn 1 against frogs, like going into game 2, because then you could like summon your Ancient Gear Beast, and then they'll like maybe take your guy, and then they'll summon their own Vanity's Fiend and hit you for a bunch or something. It's just a card you want to be careful of in some matchups where your opponent has big monsters that are scary. All right, rest of the spell cards. We got 1 limiter removal. Card is incredibly broken and incredibly gorgeous. Ultimate rare, Japanese. You got to use the flex rarities on every instance possible. It just looks fucking amazing. This card, I think, has, as of right now, like a 96% win rate in my starting hand. This might be one of the best cards in all of Edison format. It is insane. Every game I draw this, outside of like 1 or 2 that I've played ever, I've won. This card is so broken. Double all your monsters, and then if they would get popped, it just pops the unions instead. Fucking ridiculous card, this one. Usually just reads win the game. Next, one-ofs, we got the Brain Control Ultimate Rare English. Sadly, not Euro print. This is the pleb North American print, but you know, you got to go for that first edition near mint. This card probably fetches a pretty penny. I don't know how much it goes for, but this card's broken. Take a monster, tribute it for an Ancient Gear monster, or just take a monster and go for a game. That's really all you need. Last but definitely not least, well, actually 2 things before last, but definitely not least, we've got Overload Fusion and Future Fusion. These 2 cards I don't see everyone playing in this deck, and the more I play with this deck, the more I recommend playing these cards. They may seem a little bit inconsistent. Overload Fusion only works with 1 fusion in the deck. We'll get to that later. And Future Fusion, it has a couple of options. We'll get to it later. Drawing it mid-game is not great, I'm going to be honest. But if you have it in your opening hand, it's an instant threat. Going first, it means that you're going to be able to resolve at least one really scary dude through a Royal Oppression. It's a one-card threat, which is really important. It's a one-card double threat if it resolves. And Overload Fusion just gives you an insane late-game top deck, which this deck really needs, and I think most Edison decks really need insane late-game top decks. And Overload Fusion really fits that bill. We'll get into these more when I talk about the extra deck, but that'll be last. And then definitely last but not least are the Heavy Storm and Space Typhoon. These cards in this deck actually are so much better than they are in other decks. The reason being is because even in matchups where they are dead, you're going to end up with a Gear Town in play like 70% of the time that you can't do anything with. So that Gear Town is just rotting. So even if your opponent's playing like Frogs or some crazy Treacherous Trap Hole bullshit where they don't have a lot of back row, you can blow up your own Gear Town with these and turn them into a 3,000 monster. So these cards are actually really, really strong in this deck. They're rarely dead, almost never dead. And of course, they are the best spell and trap removal in the entire format. Moving on, trap cards. We're playing 9 trap cards. I think it was 11 spells? Something like that. I don't know. I don't know how many spells it was. I don't do this math shit. No, wait, it was more than that. It was like 13 spells. Yeah, I think it's like 13 spells. A lot of spells in this deck. Anyway, one Call of the Haunted. Once again, just late game top decks that are really, really strong. This card can bring back an Ancient Gear monster or a Machina Fortress. So that's obviously really strong. And it also works nicely. It's chainable if your Peacekeeper's in the grave as well. So this card is just a one-card powerhouse, one-card bomb. Late into the game, early into the game, it's still solid. It helps you extend into your OTKs and potentially go for game. Love this card in this deck. Absolutely recommend playing it. As many of the one-card bombs as you can play, you probably should. One Torrential Tribute. This card's really important for clearing the dupe block, or like if your opponent sets a Raikou, you can just set the Torrential and then like they'll eventually play into it. And it's like 1-for-1 with a Raikou, but that's pretty good because that's usually all you need. If you haven't drawn the Gear Beast, you just need to clear that Raikou so you can go for your OTK. One Mirror Force. This card is a staple. I can't recommend playing a deck without it, honestly. Ever since I was looking at the RBET rulers, like configurations and everything, this is one of 5 cards that was played in every single World Championship deck. This card, Heavy Storm, Space Typhoon, Brain Control, and Trap Dust Shoot. And I'm playing all 5 of those in this deck. So those are kind of like your 5 Edison staples. I'd say never leave home without it. This card's fantastic. The next trap card is super crucial for this deck. This deck is an OTK deck. So you got to play triple compulsory evacuation device. We're using the English Prismatic Collector's Rare. Now, I'm not really sold on these. I'm going to be honest. They look okay. They look fine, but I wanted to have them in the video somewhere so I could compare them to some other rarities that are either later in the video or immediately after this. But as far as this card goes, usability-wise, this is the best card in this deck. It's so good. Usually, you just have your 3-4-piece combo that just OTKs your opponent, but they have a guy in play. And you're like, shit, how do I deal with that? I just get rid of it. Just put it back in their hand and then kill them. That's it. That's all you need to do. And if you can put your guys into play through Solemn Judgment, which often happens, you can use Compulsory Evacuation Device in tandem with the Ancient Gear monsters to play through Solemn Judgment. So usually if you go like Gear Town, whatever, you're able to put these into play without your opponent really negating anything. You'll go to the battles phase. You'll declare the attack with the Ancient Gear Gajiltron Dragon. Then you'll use Compulsory on their monster after you've declared the attack. Your opponent can't activate any spell and trap cards till the end of the damage step, so they can't negate your Compulsory. It basically gives you a split-second card. I don't know if you play Magic the Gathering, but it's just like split-second removal. It also deals with a lot of cards that this deck like fucking hates, like Armor Master, Colossal Fighter, Spirit Reaper, that sort of thing. This card deals with all of those, no questions asked. It deals with them after they've resolved. It deals with them before they've resolved. It deals with them at any point. It helps you play through Honest, helps you play through Collude, helps you deal with basically anything, helps you reuse Gear Frame, helps you play against your opponent's Cyber Dragons. Let's say you have a Gear Frame in play and your opponent's special is a Cyber Dragon. You just compulse your own Gear Frame. On your turn, you normal the Gear Frame again, search again, contact with their own Cyber Dragon, kill them. This is like the best trap card for this deck. It was like tailor-made for this deck. Every single application that you can use this card for that's good, it gets used in this deck. So absolutely use 3. Maybe don't use this rarity. Not quite sold on it. Next trap card is one of the OG's, Solemn Judgment. I don't have a Metal Raiders first edition one, but I do have this really cool Europrint collector's rare one. So that's something. And you can compare this. This is like one of the earlier collector's rares, which I think look pretty damn good. I'm not gonna lie. I think the earlier collector's rares look classy. They look classy. You can compare this with one of the prismatic collector's rares, and the texturing is kind of lost in the prismatic collector's rares. They don't have nearly as defined a texturing as the collector's rares from earlier on. They're kind of glossier. They've got this sparkle finish, and you know me, I love the sparkle finish, but I really am missing that texture that is in the earlier collector's rares. So definitely recommend using the earlier collector's rares for some cards, maybe like Card Trooper or whatever else. That's a card we're not playing in this deck, by the way, Card Trooper, because I just didn't feel the need to play it. I mean, I felt like Scrap Recycler is basically that, but it's more guaranteed. It gets you what you need, whether it's Fortress or the Cyber Dragon or whatever else. Anyway, moving on. Last two cards. Trap Dust Shoot, like I said, I ain't paying for a super rare one. They look ass anyway, so we're using the dual terminal. There isn't a better rarity yet. I would like, personally, I think a secret rare of this would be really cool, or an ultimate rare would be really cool. I would love either of those, but as of right now, we're using my HP. You can even see where it's like fucked up in the back, kind of. Well, I don't know if you can see that. You can kind of see it there. You can see it's like fucked up. There's like a bend there. This is my HP dual terminal one. Old, reliable, whatever. It's been through a million games. And then one copy of Trapstone. This is just another way to just go for game. This card fucks. It's just really good. A lot of the decks right now are playing -1 trap cards because they're the most versatile. So they're playing like either Karma Cut or Phoenix Wing or whatever the fuck else. Icarus Attack, that sort of shit. And if they are playing those cards, then this card just fucking owns them 2 for 1 every single time, and it gets everything that you don't beat with the Ancient Gears, whether it's Bottomless or Icarus or, like I said, Phoenix Wing. All that shit just gets caught up by Trapstone. It's good in every matchup. It's good against Frogs because now they're playing like 6 trap cards, which is crazy. It's good against Draw Traps. It's fucking amazing card. Actually, you know, if there was more space, I'd recommend playing 2. But yeah, there is no space. The main deck 40, I feel like, is perfect. Can't recommend changing anything. I've played a bajillion games with this, and you guys will see how fucking smoothly it plays. All right, that's the whole main deck. Let's get into the side deck. We're going to do the side deck first because the extra deck has some stuff that's like directly related to the side deck. First things first, we got 2 Consecrated Light. This is a Floodgate versus Blackwings, and it helps a little bit against Vayu Turbo. You can also technically make an argument to bring this in against Frogs in some cases. Like if your opponent's on triple Battle Fader, this card's pretty good because it'll shut off the Battle Faders and Gores, and it'll shut off Tragodia. So it'll just allow you to go for game. Basically, it also stops them from Kaiusing you. So Kaiusing you main phase 1, I guess. It also stops Vanity's Fiend. It's not amazing against Frogs. Obviously, Treeborn just attacks over it, but it can buy you a battle phase or it can get you an OTK. There are some builds where you might bring this in, but it really is there for the dark decks, the Teledadge, the Blackwings, the Zombies, and the Vayu Turbos. This card is kind of ass. I only side 2 because there are only really 2 cards that sometimes get sided out depending on the matchup, and it's these 2. So you have 2 normal summons that you side in, and you have 2 normal summons that you side out. And this is kind of like my, I don't know how to say it, siding pattern. And you'll see it works with the rest of the side deck as well. We're not overcommitting to any specific sideboard card because we only really have 2 normal summon slots that we're going to be siding in sideboard stuff for. So that's why we're not like heavily overcommitting to anything. So yeah, 2 Consecrated, 1 Fossil Dyna Packy. I know a lot of people play more than this, but I found in testing that drawing 1 is usually very good, and I found that drawing multiples is usually fucking ass. Because if the first one is ass, then the second one is going to be ass. Like if the first one gets run over by a Junk Synchron, then your opponent's going to have that Junk Synchron still to kill the second one. But if the first one shuts them out of the game, then you'll never need to draw a second one. The only reason you'd side 2 is if you wanted to see them more often, but like I said, I'm usually siding this in alongside another normal summon, so and there's not that many normal summons that you really want to side out. So this guy, only siding the 1, great card, fantastic. I'm using the Speed Duel Secret Rare. I think it flashes a little bit more than the Light of Destruction Secret Rare. You guys can let me know in the comments if you've had experiences with the Speed Duel Secret Rares or not. The next normal summon that I am citing is 1 Neospatian Grandmole. I ordered an ultimate rare one for this video, and I really wanted to have it. It was like the one card in the deck I was very excited for. I saved up a bunch for it. It was like $100, and it just got lost in the mail. And it got lost in the mail with tracking, which is crazy. That's never happened before. So brutal. But we got the dual terminal one. We're making the vid. We're getting the vid out, but man, that was a heartbreaker. Would have been really cool to show off my son in Ultimate Rare to show you guys how he's grown up. But all reliable, dual terminal, can't go wrong. Once again, it helps versus Raikos, helps versus Value Turbo. It's the best card versus Value Turbo. It's like pretty good against other flip effect decks. It's really good against Amaryllis decks because you just put it back in their hand. Like, oh, nice Titanium. Now it's in your hand. Nice Amaryllis. Now it's in your hand. Nice, oh, you stole my monster. Now it's back in my hand. That sort of thing. This card's great. So yeah, it's just a great utility card. It works really well with the next card in the deck, which is Lava Golem. Again, we are using the Speed Duel Secret. Not a big fan of this. I was going to get the Japanese Ultimate Rare one, but I couldn't find one for a price that I liked. There was like a couple listings, but they were like moderately played for like $80. And I'm like, man, I don't really want to spend $80 on a moderately played card. So yeah, in the market for a Japanese Ultimate Rare, if you have one, this card works really, really well with this deck. And it works with the large part, the next few cards I'm going to put on screen for you guys. There's one Marionette Might, there's one Zombie Master, and one Zombie World. We'll get to these in a second. But Lava Golem basically says just kill 2 monsters and sometimes deal 1,000. Or sometimes deal even more. This card is incredibly useful against the dupe block. It's incredibly useful against tokens. You can summon it in defense. The normal summon restriction doesn't really matter because you can special summon so easily with Machina Fortress and Gear Town. So the normal summon restriction, while it does kind of matter with like Gear Frame specifically, it's not too bad. You can summon this and then you can put it back in your hand with Grand Mole or with your 3 copies of Compulsory Evacuation Device. Build your own Icarus attack. You can summon this and then kill it with Fossil Dyna flipping face up. You can summon it just to burn your opponent out for game. Sometimes you'll be able to attack with Gear Frame plus double Gajiltron, and that's not quite 8,000. So this guy can get you the last few points of burn off the top of your deck if you need it. So it's reach, it's a double kill spell, reusable double kill spell, and it works really well with the next package. So Marionette Might, for those of you guys who don't know what this is the max rarity, by the way. It's a fucking rare, but that's the rarest Marionette Might you can get. This card is like Puppet Plant. It's also like Electric Virus. You discard it from your hand, spell speed 1. You can take a Fiend or a zombie type monster. Lava Golem's a Fiend. So you double tribute, and then you Marionette Might, pitch, take Lava Golem. That's a little bit situational, but there are a lot of Fiend type monsters that come up in Edison format. That's really good for this to take. And the next package, which I'm going to show you guys, is Zombie World plus Zombie Master. We are using the Ultimate Rare. I couldn't come up with the nicest rarity of Zombie World. A lot of people were saying get the Duelist League ones. I saw some in person. They looked all right. They look decent. Some people like the purple name. I kind of like the red name ones. But ultimately, I couldn't decide. So let me know in the comments below what max rarity Zombie World I should get and what you guys think would look best in this deck. Zombie World searchable, so it turns all your opponent's monsters into Zombie World or into zombies, and then it turns Marionette Might into a hard brain control. So straight up Zombie World and Marionette Might is just getting to play 2 brain controls, but the second one doesn't cost 800 life points. Busted. Really, really strong. Zombie World also combos with Zombie Master. You can take any monster from your opponent's graveyard, pitch a fortress, or pitch your dead Ancient Gear monsters, and speed stuff into play. Go for big OTKs. The extra deck, I'll show you some combos with that as well. If your opponent's playing Plague, you can combo kill them off their own Plague, which is super duper funny. And then Zombie World also prevents your opponent from using the Cyber Dragon to contact with your machine type monsters. It prevents things like Titanium from activating. It prevents things like Amaryllis from activating. It prevents Red Eyes Darkness Metal. It prevents Christia. It prevents so much stuff. If you activate this against Blackwings, they actually have to choose to set their monsters to keep Icarus attack live, which is really, really nice. It slows them down considerably. While you may not say like, oh, they can still just set their monster. Sure, but then they have to set their monster. So it's like you're getting a free Book of Moon out of it. It's pretty solid. And it also can cut off like Whirlwind searches. They have to choose between getting Whirlwind or they have to choose between using Icarus attack, which is really nice. So the nice thing about these 4 cards is that like pretty much any 3 of these can come in and it's going to be pretty good. Like you could side in these 3 and it's pretty good. I've had games against Frogs where I'll bring in the Golem. I'll bring the Zombie World, shuts off Monarchs and stuff as well. And then I'll bring in Zombie Master, and Zombie Master is pretty useful if they go Lone Treeborn, fearing maybe a Soul Release. You can just steal their lone Treeborn and they can't make a play, which is really funny. You could side in the Marionette Mite with just the Lava Golem in the zombie world. Maybe you don't want to bring in the Zombie Master, but you want to bring in these three. Steal Caius's, steal the Lava Golem. You could bring in just the Marionette Mite and the Lava Golem. If your opponent has enough Fiends or Zombies already against zombie decks, that can be very crucial. You can bring in just the Zombie Master and the Zombie World if you want. You don't need to bring in all of them. That's the cool thing about this package is you can side in some parts of it, you can side in all of it, and they all have synergy together, except for, obviously, Zombie World and Lava Golem. But I believe, because it's not a tribute summon, you can still summon Lava Golem under Zombie World, which is really, really nice. So these 4 cards have been fantastic for me in testing and siding, and I would not recommend changing this. This has been the best part of the sideboard by far, actually, which is crazy. Moving on, next parts. 1, Nobleman of Crossout, just a catch-all, kills Rykos, no questions asked. Banishes stuff. It's just a spot removal that, I don't know. You could maybe play a Karma Cut here, but I think the discard is pretty hefty. Most of your OTKs take like 3-4 cards, so piecing that together is pretty difficult when you have to tack on a discard and a removal spell on top of that. It's like a 6-card OTK. Yeah, not good. Anyway, but Nobleman of Crossout just clears set monsters. A lot of decks will try to set against you to defend their life total so they don't just die. They'll set Dynas, they'll set Dupe Frogs, they'll set whatever. Rykos, you just knock it. Don't think about it. Pretty catch-all. Double Light Mirror, this deck's worst matchup. Light decks, Light Sworn, Fairies, terrible matchups. You just got to have the Light Mirrors for those decks because there's no way you're winning otherwise. Those matchups are just, they're fucking terrible. I don't know how to tell you guys. They're really, really bad. Even with the Light Mirrors, it's not great, but Light Mirror gives you a fighting chance. So, yeah, definitely the worst matchup for this deck. You have tools, but they're not great. One of the best cards in the sideboard, Double Iron Wall. This card gives you a favorable matchup against Vayu Turbo and against Hero Frogs, which are very popular decks. I've used this card to counter so many cards in Edison format. Your deck doesn't play into this at all except for Overload Fusion. So you can just side out Overload Fusion when you bring this in, and it's a floodgate that just cripples decks. Most decks have about 10 cards that banish, so this is shutting off like a quarter of your opponent's deck. Stops Caius, stops Deep Prison. I mean, you already stopped Deep Prison kind of, but you flip this, they can't Bottomless you. You flip this, they can't Karma Cut you. They can't activate Dark Arm Dragon. They can't activate Necrogarna to stop your OTK. They can't do so much when this card is in play. It's so fucking strong. One of the best cards in this deck, if not the best sideboard card, but definitely one of the best. Very, very strong card. And then the last 2 cards are 1, Starlight Road. We are using the Japanese Collector's Rare, and we can do a little bit of an A-B comparison here. You can see the beautiful texturing here and how well it shines through. Let's do a little bit of a comparison. This is the English Collector, and this is the English Prismatic Collector. English Collector Euro, I should say. The English Collector Euro looks good. The texturing is lacking a little bit on the card art. The texturing on the Japanese Collectors looks incredible. It's so defined. It's so beautiful. It really does pop through the card. And then the texturing on the Prismatic Collector's Rares is just, it's almost non-existent. Like, you can hardly see it. So if you are going to opt for like buying the best looking cards, the OCG cards are the best looking. They hands down are. Anyway, moving on. Starlight Road, this is for Icarus Attack. You side this in to counter Blackwings and get a free Stardust Dragon. That's it, simply put. If your opponent's trying to destroy 2 or more cards, you bring this in. There are a couple decks where this is pretty useful against. It can be okay against Quick Draw. If they try to Black Rose you, you can flip Starlight Road. It can be good as just a surprise mix-up. This card is a game winner, so you just kind of flip it, and it depends on the opponent, too. Sometimes your opponent will be playing pretty aggressively with cards like Heavy Storm and stuff, and maybe you just want to bring this in to keep them honest. And then the last card is 1 Dust Tornado. The reason I'm playing 1 copy of Dust Tornado is there are some cards in Edison format that are just kind of bullshit, and like Level Limit Area B, for example. That card kind of fucks your deck. So you just need a extra catch-all answer to those kind of cards. So this card's also useful against some like rogue matchups, the mirror match. 6 Samurai is another card or another matchup where this card really shines. So I think 1 Dust Tornado is perfect. There's actually a cool play with this. If you have a field spell in play, like let's say you have a Gear Town in play and you activate Dust Tornado on your opponent's card, you can use the second effect of Dust Tornado to set your own field spell from your hand over the Gear Town, and then you can special summon from your deck. So if your opponent like sets a back row, ends their turn, you can go dust their back row, set your field spell, and get your monster into play under Bottomless, which is really, really cool in this deck. There's a lot of other little things like sneaking your Call of the Haunted into play as well. That works really well. But yeah, that's the entire sideboard. Let's go ahead and get into the extra deck. We got Doom Kaiser Dragon, of course, and we've got Revive King Hades. These are the big zombie bosses. Mine looks a little bit silvery. I wonder if that's like a misprint or something. I can't really tell. These cards are gorgeous. Shout out to Matt for hooking me up with these at rbet New York. They work with your Zombie Master package. You can take your opponent's Plague, make Doom Kaiser, take their Plague again, and then ladder into a level 8, then make your OTK safe, all for the cost of 2 cards, which is pretty cool. Or against zombies, you can take their Plague, you can make Revive King Hades, and then start running over the recruiters, their goblin zombies, and permanently negate them. So yeah, 2 really, really nice cards. Cool thing about Revive King Hades too is it makes all of your zombie monsters negate effects when they run things over. So if you are able to make him, and you have like an Ancient Gear Gajiltron Dragon out as well, as long as you have Zombie World in play, all of your monsters will negate the set monsters that they run into. So if you're scared of something like Mirror Force, you don't want to run your Revive King Hades into the Mirror Force, and your opponent has a set monster that you need to clear, you can make Revive King, then use one of your Ancient Gear monsters with the Zombie World to run over the effect monster and negate their effects with the Revive King Hades. Both really crucial cards for this deck, and both really, really good cards in general. Those are the first 2 cards. Next level 6s, 1 Flamvel Urukizis. This guy helps you go for pierce damage for a game. That's pretty much it. The only way you can make him, of course, is by stealing tuners with Zombie Master. So that's why we have a heavy emphasis on 6. Bryonic, same thing, just game shots. Goyo Guardian, big, steal shit. You know, you're rarely going to make this card, but it is going to come up. So the next is a couple of 7s. I like to play more 7s than usual in this deck. We're using 1 Ancient Fairy Dragon. The Ancient Fairy Dragon is... It comes up when you take Gale with the Zombie Master and the Zombie World. You'll take Gale, have something, make Ancient Fairy Dragon, then you can blow up your Gear Town, get a 3k monster, go the fuck off, basically. So this comes up a lot when you take Gale, specifically. Black Rose Dragon, same thing. When you take Gale, you want to make Black Rose Dragon. This is a Japanese dual terminal, ultra rare. It looks fucking incredible. These cards just, god damn, they do it right. Armor Master, Blackwing Armor Master. This is the prize card Armor Master. Shout out to my boy in Maryland who hooked this up. You already know who you are. But yeah, the same thing. You take Gale, you make Armor Master versus Blackwings. It's pretty useful. Gorgeous looking card. Stardust Dragon. This comes in off of the Starlight Road. Or if you ladder the Doom Kaiser Dragon. This is the Japanese dual terminal printing. It looks very clean. Kind of a pain in the ass to find these, by the way. 1 Colossal Fighter. Same thing, you ladder into this guy sometimes, you take Plague and then you ladder into Colossal. Helps you clear stuff like Amaryllis or whatnot. Pretty cool card. This is also, I believe, the prize card one. 1 X-Saber Gothams. This actually got cut, I think, in my final version. I've never made this. In theory, you can make it by Zombie Master, take Plague, and then synchro with Machina Fortress. So in theory, you can make it. I've just never made it. It never comes up. I've actually cut this for a second copy of Chimera-Tech Fortress, but I didn't have a second Starfoil Chimera-Tech Fortress, so I'm showing you the Gothams. Just showing it off, I guess, basically. But yeah, we are using Chimera-Tech Fortress. There should be 2 copies instead of the Gothams. The second one does actually come up quite a bit, especially because you play Call of the Haunted as a way to bring back Cyber Dragon against machines. It's pretty important to have 2 of these. This card's great. This is the prize pack. This is the max rarity Chimera-Tech. It looks really cool. I actually have a different one here that I could show you guys that I also really like. Hold up. This one looks fucking crazy. Let me show you this. This shit is nice. Look at this. This is the ultimate rare from Japan. God damn, dude. God damn. Look at the texturing on that bitch. Oh my fucking god. Alright, anyway, yeah, that would be the second copy. The rest of the fusions, we've got 1 Chimera-Tech Overdragon. You make this with Overload Fusion, obviously. 1 Cyber Twin Dragon. This guy actually does come up. You use Future Fusion to send 2 Cyber Dragons on occasion. Sometimes you just want to Future Fusion for something and not have to nuke your field in 2 turns. But you do want to get Cyber Dragon in the graveyard for your Overload Fusion. And so this is the next best thing you can reveal to send Cyber Dragon to the graveyard off of Future Fusion, because you can't reveal Chimera-Tech Fortress off of Future Fusion. This guy cannot be made with Overload or Future Fusion, so you can't reveal this card for either of those cards. You have to reveal one of these 3 fusions. The Overdragon, the Cyber Twin, or the Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem. This is the last card in the deck list. This is the card I usually reveal. This card's got such a cool effect. So first off, it pierces, right? It's a 4400 piercer. Which, holy shit, this gets over every Blackwing monster with Kalut factored in, and even some of them with double Kalut factored in. Think on that for a second. That's fucking crazy. And then if they have triple Kalut, if it does die, you get a special summon an Ancient Gear Golem from your graveyard, ignoring its summoning conditions. I think this is the only card in Edison format that has that line of text where it's just like, yeah, ignore whatever it says on the card and cheat, basically. Fantastic card. Usually what I reveal off Future Fusion, depending on the matchup, we'll send some combination of the Gear Beasts or the Gear Dragons. And sometimes I will reveal either of these guys, but you need the Over Dragon for the Overload Fusion. You need the Cyber Twin for the option to send double Cyber without having to nuke your own board in 2 turns. And then you need this guy because he's the one you reveal the most. And that's going to be the whole deck profile. Once again, if you guys want to compete, if you guys want to try this deck out at the highest level of play, check the description below. If you guys like the mat, I believe this is an Yggdrasil mat. Oh my god, it is an Yggdrasil mat. Of course it's an Yggdrasil mat. Oh, it's so nice, the Halloween drop. Oh my god. This is not sponsored, but goddamn, the Yggdrasil mats are fucking amazing. And you could potentially get one at RBET Los Angeles. Yeah, check the description below, and I'll see you guys in the gameplay. 8-man tournament gameplay time, folks. Round 1, you already know what it is. You saw the banger deck profile. I went really into detail with that deck profile, but I wanted to make sure you guys knew about some of the plays before we got into the match. Alright, round 1 is up against Cole Graham. He hits me with the my deck kind of dog shit, not gonna lie. Let's take a look at his deck because I think it's kind of interesting at the very least. It might be worth showing off. Just some of the ideas he's working with. He's got Lone Fire, and he's also got like a full Lightshorn deck, 46 cards. Pretty interesting. All right, drawn to Trap Dust Shoot. So pretty strong start going first. We've got double Compulsory. You guys will see the strength of this card here shortly. We're just going to go ahead and set to Dust Shoot the mains. Go ahead and see the Lila and just be like, get that shit out of my fucking face. The rest of the hand we can probably play through. Compulsory can probably deal with the big Gorge token once we finally get to that. But the Lila, that's just going to be super annoying. It's going to mill for the JD. It could potentially hit Dandelion for the Lone Fire. It will blow up our Compulsory. So we really don't want to deal with that Lila. So I'm going to get that shit right out of here. He passes back to us. We draw Ancient Gear Golem. So a little bit of a brick, but we could potentially summon it later on using the Mausoleum. So I'm just going to go ahead and fire off the Terraformings, and actually I'm just going to go for the Mausoleum right away. Yeah, that makes sense because I want to summon Gear Golem and the Gear Gajiltron, run over the Gores, and then compulse the token and just be big chillin', and then just win the game. So yeah, special the Gear Gajiltron, flip, pay 2k, normal the Ancient Gear Golem. This does give me a little bit of hesitance because he can pay 2k to summon his own monsters, but thankfully Judgment Dragon can't be normal summoned, and I know his whole hand, so big chillin', attack for 3k, he drops the Gores, attack over the Gores. He should have summoned it in attack, actually, because this guy pierces. So, yeah, we pierced for 500 damage there. A little bit of a misstep from the opponent. Probably just forgot it pierced. It's a habit to summon this guy in defense, but definitely summon him in attack versus the piercer. Going to go ahead and set the compulsory evacuation device. His draw is Monster Reincarnation. He could burn that right now to get back the Gores to try and survive. He's going to normal summon the Lone Fire, priority activate. I'm going to allow the first one to resolve. Then in response to the second one, I am going to chain the compulsory to target the token so that he can't Titanial negate the compulsory. Not that it would really fucking matter, but yeah, he decides to go ahead and get Titanial anyway. He could have got Dandelion, but it would have given us free avenues for Pierce, and we actually would have just OTK'd him through it because of the Ancient Gear Beast. And at this moment, he just concedes. So yeah, can't get through the compulsory plus the Gadgetron Dragons. If your opponent ever really draws a back row light hand, this deck will just destroy them. That's kind of like the showcase of that first game is like, oh, you don't have back row? I guess I just win turn 2. And that's pretty much how it goes most of the time. This deck is just incredibly fast. It's incredibly potent at putting up uninterrupted damage. The issue becomes when your opponent starts to have interactive pieces. So we'll get into that later on, obviously. But yeah, the deck is just very good at beating up on these. Like Lightning Vortex, it's not going to matter because I'm going to get the damage in, and that's all that's going to matter. This hand, we have the Overload Fusion, so you guys can kind of see it, see how it works, that sort of deal. He draws Honest, which is pretty fucking strong. He's got the Lila, so he's going to mill 3. Terrible mills, but when you have 46 cards in your deck, your mills are going to be slightly less consistent, just the way it goes. I go ahead and normal summon Gear Frame, search the Machina Fortress, pitch the Ancient Gear Beast to special the Fortress, and Fortress plays through Honest, so against Lightsworn, this guy's your MVP. Summon the Fortress. He's going to use the Honest, and we're going to blow up the Lila 2 for 1. We are going to take 1700 damage, but really can't complain about that. Just a solid 2 for 1. Attack for 18, plus we get the chip damage. We're going to main phase 2, bring out the Machina Fortress, and equip the gear frame. This is to play around Cyber Dragon, and I wanted to bring him out in case he was able to put like a Vanity's Fiend or a Fossil Diner or something in play that could be potentially annoying. Anyway, he draws Heavy Storm, which is kind of an okay card here because it'll at least allow him to kill the Fortress, but as you can see, we can gear frame and then find Force and then pitch the Force and special the Fortress and attack for 4,300, brain control potentially winning the game, so he's going to go for the Lumina, pitch Wolf, bring out the Lila pop the gear frame, electing to do that instead of pitching the Heavy Storm and keeping the Wolf in hand. It makes marginal difference. He could have also pitched special Wolf and then Heavy Stormed away the back row, but maybe he's trying to save the Heavy Storm for real back row in case I draw it. But Heavy Storm, generally speaking, is not very good against our deck because it'll usually be popping a Gear Town. So this deck is pretty resilient to this card. Possibly should have not left it in, actually, weirdly enough. He's going to Lightning Vortex, pitching the Amaryllis, not the Heavy Storm, which makes sense again. You want the Amaryllis in the graveyard. And he's going to mill 6 here, which is pretty big. He decides not to attack to play around Gores, which, fair enough. Gores would obliterate him here, so yeah, fair enough to play around it. He's going to get 2 tokens, and I believe he did... No, that's it. He does have the Amaryllis he can bring back as well. So he's got 5 cards, and we do rip into Cyber Dragon, which is amazing. This turn... Obviously, a little bit messy from your boy here. I forget that the I forget something. I don't fucking remember. I special Cyber Dragon, normal summon the gear frame, search for Machina Force, and then I messed this up. I messed this whole OTK up. But basically, what I'm supposed to do is I'm supposed to hold the Force in my hand, contact. This is correct. This is correct, but accidentally so. What I thought I was supposed to do was keep the Force in hand. But I'm actually supposed to pitch the Force to get the extra machine in the grave, make the Chimera Tech, and then I go for the Overload Fusion, and I banish all the boys. I try to banish the Fortress Dragon. You can't actually do that. He reminds me here, thankfully. But yeah, I was supposed to banish the Fortress and not the Fortress. I know, it's confusing. They're both named Fortress. It's I was supposed to banish the Machina Fortress, not the Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon. And then just attack for game, basically, with the brain control on the Amaryllis. But it's the same. I just accidentally banished the wrong card, basically. But yeah, attacks. This guy can attack all of his monsters. Deals 4,600. And then Amaryllis can deal the last few points of damage. So, yeah. Overload Fusion. That's why we include it in the list. You play it so that you just get those kills. The Cyber Dragon draw was obviously very good. We would have still been in a pretty good spot, though, because Gear Frame, search Force, pitch the Force, bring out the Machina Fortress, run over his guys. It's looking pretty good for us, and his top deck there looked like it was going to be a Lila, which wasn't dealing with Fortress plus Gear Frame. So we probably would have been in a decent spot there, but drawing the Cyber Dragon obviously led us to immediately ending the game, which is nice. And there's quite a few ways you can get to Cyber Dragon, whether it's Future Fusion, Scrap Recycler, or the 2 Cyber Dragons itself. Which is, I guess it's only 4 ways. That's still decent, Still decent amount of ways to get to Cyber Dragon. So, Overload Fusion, pretty popping card. Sometimes it's dead, but not in that case. Very powerful. Moving on to the next round. All right. What do we got? Me versus Joseph. And if you guys have ever dueled Edison format, you might have played against Joseph. He's a very active player, very strong player, very scary player. But he is trying out a new deck. So, we're in round 2 here. He's won his round 1. I've won my round 1. And I am playing the Machina deck. He is playing the Shed deck. Fan favorite deck. Very, very popular deck. You guys love Shed. Shed episode 2 is coming soon. Revenge of the Shed, whatever it's called. Attack of the Shed. You know the vibes. A deck that I personally invented. Really cool to see Joseph trying it out. It's a very complicated deck. Kind of a pain in the ass to play. That's probably why I haven't made episode 2 yet. I've been pretty busy lately, alas. The IRL gameplay will return soon when I'm less fucking busy. I don't know how to say it. But I've been really trying to make a lot of stuff happen, and I'm also like part of a bridal party, which is like really cool, and I'm very excited for that. But it's gonna be the last like week of this month that is taking up a large part of like me being able to record IRL content. So still very grateful for the opportunity of that, but you get the vibes. Anyway, we're going to go Scrap Recycler, send Machina Fortress. I don't know why I did this. Oh, I just wanted access to Fortress. Yeah, that's it. That's why I did it. All right. He's got Greffer. He's got Dark Arm. So he could do a lot of stuff here. Now, if I was him, you know, this is an interesting one. He's got Dad, he's got Trag, and Hidden Armory. I might have actually just shotgun the Armory here because he has Trag to survive any OTK, and the Trag is 3,000. So if I was him, I would have just actually held the Greffer and then just use the Armory this turn to find DDR. Anyway, he attacks the Scrap Recycler, which we just let happen. We can kill the Greffer for free. So it's going to be a 1-for-1 trade, basically. He passes it back to us. We draw Mirror Force. Great card. Can't complain. Pitch, special the Fortress, attack the Dark Greffer. Here he's going to activate and special summon Tragodia. So, Tragodia's 2,400 here. Still sizable, but we can brain control it, sack it for Cyber Dragon if we want to. We could let him attack the Machina Fortress. There's a whole bunch of stuff we could do, but it looks like we're just gonna pass the turn. He's gonna draw, and then he's gonna instantly go for a Heavy Storm here, which leads me to believe that he is playing a card here that can steal the Fortress. Otherwise, he wouldn't make the Tragodia weaker than the Fortress. He would want it to be stronger than the Fortress. So it led me to believe that I should compulse my own Fortress. So I do that. I want to leave the Trag in play because I want to run it over. And I don't think taking 2,400 is that big of a deal here. Like, our life total doesn't matter. We're playing an OTK deck. It could be 1 life point. It doesn't matter. We're going to be dealing 8,000 at some point. That's kind of the vibes. But I just don't want him to steal my Fortress and reversal OTK me somehow. That would have been kind of frustrating. That being said, it would have ripped a card out of his hand. So I don't really know. I don't fully know how that would have gone. But anyway, he attacks for 24. I would have actually gone for the Hidden Armory first, because if he hits a Wind, there's a good chance he just kills me. So yeah, he probably should have gone for the Hidden Armory first. He hits an Earth, so he misses the Wind. But had he hit a Wind there, it was better sequencing to go for it first, because you are going to play it. So there's really no reason not to shotgun the Hidden Armory there. But yeah, he passes the turn back. We draw the Ancient Gear Golem. And now we've got, I believe, a pitch special, attack, run over. We didn't quite have game there because brain control on Trag is kind of silly. It's like he becomes weak when we take him. So I decided to just summon the Fortress, get the Cyber Dragon in the grave, set up for our big brain control Ancient Gear Golem turns in the future. We can Terraforming for Mausoleum, so we can put a lot of damage into play next turn, potentially. He draws E-Call, so he's finally able to find his Stratos. And he can actually, I believe, kill us? No, can he kill us? Hold on. Let me cook. Huh. I'm trying to think if there's a way to do it. Stratos search malicious. That would take up the normal. Brain control Fortress doesn't quite get you anywhere. You would have to somehow get the Stratos in the grave, and nothing's banished. So the fact that our deck doesn't play like bottomless and it plays compulsory is actually really working to our favor here. This game was all decided by a Hidden Armory mill. That's crazy. If he had like hit a Wind or a Dark, I'd just fucking lose. That's fucking crazy. Anyway, he finds Stratos. He summons Stratos, searches Mally. He can crash the Stratos and put the Dark Simorg into play, but then he just dies to brain control. He can... Okay, let's see what he does. He decides to pass. Okay, so what I'm thinking he should have done was crash the Stratos. Right? So he crashes the Stratos. He takes 700. Stratos dies. Main phase 2, he specials Simorg. Banishes Stratos, maybe Tragodia. Then he DDR pitches Mally. Brings out Tragodia. Tragodia, set brain control. Tragodia pitch Dark Arm, take the Fortress. That's pretty fucking strong. So he definitely had plays there. And he would have probably still been in this game. He would have had Fortress, 0 attack Tragodia, which we could run over pretty easily, Dark Simorg, and the set brain control for follow-up. So we would have had to like answer, like respond to his board, and then he could have maybe killed us with brain control, depending on what our board was and how our answer worked out. But we would have been able to put Gear Golem into play, and then we would have been able to run over our own Fortress. Fortress pop the set card, or pop the Simorg. One of those two. And then he has brain control plus Mally, resource in the grave. And it all depends on his top deck. But as it stands, he just dies. So, pretty unlucky. But I think that he had the potential to keep playing this game. He had to crash the Stratos, though, to get the wind in the grave. Like I said, this deck is fucking non-linear shit. It's, like, super convoluted. A lot of your plays are, like, really, like, weird. Like that one. Like, who would have thought to crash Stratos there, right? Like, it's just weird. And you're at 7,100. Like, you feel pretty safe, right? So, obviously, like, it's kind of crazy. But, yeah, I think it's absolutely the correct play to do all that. And just steal the Fortress. And then put the Simorg into play. And just be like, you can't use trap cards. You can't set monsters. I have all the big monsters in play. I have the Mally in the grave. I have brain control to kill you next turn, potentially. So I absolutely think that it was the right play for him to just play his hand. But, yeah, it ends up working out well for us. Thankfully, he just missed a weird line. But yeah, the deck is very weird. It's like very alinear, and it's very complicated. And I'm glad that we get to see it here, because it's a little bit more in depth and a little bit more like involved than like some of the stuff we're doing. Some of the stuff we're doing is pretty linear OTK shit, but that's the nature of the deck. I mean, it's just very aggressive. It's very fast. It's very fun. I love playing Ancient Gear. I honestly, I doubted the deck at first. I was like, what the fuck? Like, this deck with Ancient Gear Beast can't be serious, right? And then I played with it, and I was just like, holy shit, this deck is gas. It's so much fun. Anyway, he draws the Malicious. He is going first here. He has a bunch of options. I think just using one of his hand traps is pretty good. Can't complain about that. He passes it back to us. It does telegraph the hand traps a little bit, though. So he might have maybe wanted to put Plague into play or something like that, like set Plague. Something like that. Could have been, I don't know, interesting. Just like make it seem like your hand's a little weaker. I don't know. I just set the Torrential plus the Peacekeeper. You can see why Torrential is good in this deck, and you can see why Peacekeeper is good in this deck. It just gives you a strong opening summon. Like I said, you have 5 pretty solid opening summons, and Peacekeeper's amongst them. So, yeah, he activates Future Fusion. I'm forced to let this resolve, unfortunately. So, really fucking strong top deck from him. He's going to be able to send this configuration of triple Wyvern, double Red Eyes. So, at this point, he can just grind me out with Red Eyes, and I will lose. Like, straight up. Like, if he just end phase brings out Red Eyes, I have to Torrential, and he'll bring out the Red Eyes again. And I basically have to hit limiter removal next turn, or else I lose. And even then, he has Tragodia to turtle up. So, yeah. He goes for Dark Simorg, which is fine. I kind of just let it happen, I believe. Yeah, I just let it happen because I still need to save the Torrential for that Red Eyes resource. I don't understand going for the Dark Simorg as much as I understand just going for the M-Phase Red Eyes. But maybe he was scared of something like Bottomless Trap Hole. But even that doesn't really make sense because you have so many Red Eyes. And maybe he feels the need to get Dark Simorg into play so that I can't set Gear Town. I can't set the field spells over Gear Town. And that's totally understandable. So he's going to attack, and that's going to be the Peacekeeper search. We're going to go ahead and grab the Gear Frame. Now, he might be thinking that we have something like Torrential here, so potentially he might not want to bring back Red Eyes in the end phase because he's like playing around Torrential. He just passes. He doesn't use the Red Eyes in the end phase. I still think it's in his best interest to force the Torrential. Otherwise, I can just sort of kill this with Fortress. So, I don't know. I still think it's in his best interest to like force me to have Torrential. And I didn't use the Torrential on the Dark Simorg, so maybe there's a chance I don't have it, and then he still has Tragodia, and he can always bring back Dark Simorg later if he draws a wind. Like, there's just so much like he can do follow-up that I think it's correct to just like force my stuff so that I don't have to do shit. Now here I actually miss lethal. I do top deck limiter removal, and I miss lethal because I'm a fucking moron. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I have lethal here. I should summon Gear Frame, chain Torrential to the effect. I summon Gear Frame, and then I just don't chain Torrential for no fucking reason. That being said, he does have Tragodia, so I'm pretty happy that I didn't end up going for it. But the game shot is summon Gear Frame, chain Torrential, and then set Gear or activate Gear Talent, set Mausoleum. Because the Simorg will no longer be in play, I can set stuff, and then yeah, I'm gonna pitch special the Fortress, crash the Fortress, take 200, pop the Simorg, attack with Gear Frame for 18. Let's see if he drops the Trag. He does. I set Compulsory because that can bounce my Gear Frame, so I'm looking pretty set up here. You can see how powerful Compulsory is in this deck. It's just like, can remove Trag so I can go for a lethal game shot with the 6,000 Gear Boy, or I can, bounce my own Gear Frame, get more resources to work with for the big OTK. He draws. This is turn 1 on Future Fusion, and he instantly activates Tragodia. I think that because he knows I'm on Compulsory, this is like a super, super giga misplay. Definitely shouldn't do this, because I'm just going to Compulse the Gear Frame. And if he was going to kill me this turn, then maybe that would make sense, but he's not going to kill me this turn, I don't think. Could he kill me this turn? Possibly. Let's see. So if he goes Tragodia, copy level 4, normal summon Plague, Synchro into Bryonic, priority pitch Mally, I'll chain Torrential. He can then go for an 8-star, and he has yet to use his normal summon, so that's pretty strong. He could put something like Colossal Fighter in defense, and then all of a sudden, we're looking at a fucking difficult fucking game for me, because then I got to contest with a 5-headed dragon coming next turn. I can't find the game shot here, and yeah, it's going to be very difficult. So, yeah, I think if he goes level 4 with Trag, normal summon Plague, Synchro into Bryonic, priority pitch the Mally to bounce the back row. He can then make the Colossal Fighter in defense main phase 2 and basically guarantee the next turn. He could also bring out Red Eyes if he wants to, and he'll get the 5-headed dragon next turn as well. So a lot of things happening here. He's got a 2400 track. He decides to just attack. Again, I don't really fully understand this. He's going to bring out Red Eyes. We are going to flip Torrential there. And then on our turn, he's not going to bring out the Red Eyes again. He should have brought out the Red Eyes again. It doesn't matter. I think we have game through that. We just go Fortress, search Force, pitch, bring out the Fortress, or Gear Frame, search Force, pitch the Force, bring out the Fortress, and then double field spell, bring out the Gear guy, and then we have I believe it's 11,000 damage or something like that through the Red Eyes. But I do think that he should have absolutely played his hand, at least. Tried to make a synchro, tried to get the engine going, because he is also playing an OTK deck, and if you're dying with 4 cards in hand with an OTK deck, it means you probably didn't use your cards in a way that I think was beneficial. So, yeah, that ended up working out kind of poorly for him. If he had gone for the Bryonic play and he was able to bounce the back row, then he could have had Bryonic plus, like I said, Colossal Fighter, and that could have been really fucking difficult for us to deal with. Alas, he did not do that, and we are just able to go for a very easy game shot here with the set, pitch, special, and then limit removal. And yeah, go for all that. So, yeah, again, crazy OTK mirror match, crazy OTK deck. When your opponent has light back row like this and doesn't make the positionally defensive plays, it's going to be pretty light work for the machine decks. That's the really nice thing about Ancient Gear is if your opponent misplays even a little bit, you just fucking kill them. And you can't go into every game just expecting your opponent to play perfectly, right? That's just not realistic, right? But let's see the finals. I am going to play against someone who's playing a bit more of a defensive deck. I mean, so far we've played against 2 very aggressive decks. The Shed deck and the Lightsworn deck are definitely more of the offensive style decks. But this is going to be more of a defensive navigation. This is going to be the Dream Frog deck, which has been sort of waxing, waning popularity. I don't fucking know. But we are going second, so we've lost Rock, Paper, Scissors, and he's opened a very specific set of cards. He does have Titanium on his list, which I think is a pretty cool inclusion that some of the lists have started playing. It's just sort of an Omni Negate. Kind of works like Lad in a lot of instances, especially if you play Dandelion. He sets Dust Shoot, and he Dust Shoots us, so pretty rough. He's going to be able to see the hand. That being said, the nice thing about Ancient Gears is your threats are immune to Dust Shoot. We got Future Fusion, we got, Gear Town. Both of those cards are immune to Dust Shoot. They can't be taken with Dust Shoot. So oftentimes your opponent will flip a Dust Shoot, take a Scrap Recycler or something like that, or take an Ancient Gear guy, and then you just OTK them anyway, because your whole hand is just spell cards that put huge monsters into play and pump them up. So yeah, that's the vibe here. Go ahead and activate Terraforming, find the Gear Town. I decide to go for big damage because I have a brain control. So why would I not go for big damage, right? Attack for 3,000, attack for another 3,000, and then main phase 2, Future Fusion, revealing the Cyber Twin. This is the exact instance in which Cyber Twin is crucial for the extra deck. I don't want to blow up my own board in a couple turns. I don't know what my opponent's playing, but I don't want to blow up my own board. But I do want to get Cyber Dragons in the graveyard, and I've drawn my Ancient Gear Golem, so I can't reveal the ultimate Ancient Gear Golem. So this is perfect moment for the Cyber Twin Dragon. And it's going to be a nice threat to come out off Future Fusion in a few turns. He draws Treeborn Frog, he sets Dandelion, and he activates Foolish Burial, sending another Dandelion, getting 2 more tokens, and this is why we play him. He pierces. Game's already over. There's nothing he could have done. This game was just over. The Piercer attacks for game, and that's it. So that's going to be game 1. Dream Frog, sometimes prone to bricky hands if they don't have Substitute or 1-for-1. That being said, Substitute and 1-for-1 are in about 48% of their opening hands. Depends on how many Moray of Greed or like Upstart Goblin they're playing. It can go up to about, I believe, 60-ish% that they can open with Substitute. But in the 40% that they don't, you kind of just kill them. You kind of just win. So 40% of games just winning, you can't complain. And in this hand, we've got our powerful side deck strategy of the Marionette Might, and we have access to Zombie World. So that's pretty strong. We've also got Brain Control. So we've got double Brain Control plus Ancient Gear Beast for pressure. That's going to be very nice. He's opened up with the Substitute here, and he's got triple back row. So oftentimes these Frog decks are siding hella back row. The nice thing about the Ancient Gear deck is you can side really minimal. You don't need to side out your Heavy Storm or Space Typhoon if you don't want to. But if you do, sometimes these guys are just really good at playing into this back row, basically. He sets a Dupe Frog and he sets a Torrential Tribute. Now, I think that this is a pretty interesting play for him because his hand is looking to set up a Substitute play, and he's looking to Torrential away his own Dupe Frog to search stuff. I go ahead and just activate Gear Town and normal Ancient Gear Beast, and he like lets it go through. If I was him, I probably would have Torrentialed here just because you don't want this Torrential to stick around. It's like kind of awkward. It's going to make it so you won't get to use Treeborn Frog, and if you do go for your big Substitute play, you'll have to Torrential Tribute before you ever get a Treeborn Frog special summon back. So it's a little bit awkward here. I had a read that his back row was Torrential because he set it behind Dupe Frog, and he didn't chain like a Dust Tornado to the Gear Town. It was either that or it was a Mirror Force, so that's what I'm thinking. But I didn't think he would side in Mirror Force or leave in Mirror Force against Ancient Gear. That being said, maybe. You never know. Maybe they think that they can catch the Machina Fortress or something like that. But generally speaking, it's pretty bad against Ancient Gear because these guys just attack and they ignore it. So, yeah. He does end up deciding to go for the Substitute, which I think is wild. I don't think this is the correct play because it's kind of like all your resources. But he does have Salvage to sort of build back. So it's like, it's fine. It's not terrible. He sacks the Substitute and he goes for Swap Frog to send Treeborn. Bounces the Swap Frog and passes. Super interesting. We find the Fossil Dyna, and I'm like, all right, let's go ahead and just pass. Now he has to act. And I'm going to build up my resources and eventually just OTK him once I find my Heavy Storm. He goes for Salvage. He adds back Treeborn Frog and Substitute. I don't need to play into a Torrential Tribute. I have a sort of read that it's a Torrential Tribute. So I don't need to play into it. It's on him to play into it. He's going to go ahead and pitch Special Swap, activate the effect to send. He could have done this a bunch of different ways. He could have just normaled the Treeborn and then Torrentialed his own monster. Like, that would have been fine, too. He decides to go for a normal Substitute, sack the Swap Frog, Special Swap, sack that, get the dupe, sack, get the Flip-Flop, and then he's going to set the Flip-Flop, pass back to us. I draw Space Typhoon, so patience, it does pay off here. Now I can Space Typhoon his back row, and I can go for a big turn here and try to piece together a way to just clear his board, you know. So I just set the Space Typhoon. I actually just passed. That's crazy. I figured if he flips the Flip-Flop Frog, like, that's fine for us. We just get our Ancient Gear Beast back, and we take, like, 500, which is, like, not that big of a deal. And it looks like that's what he's going to do. So, cool. Decides to attack for 500. I'll let that happen. I get to keep my resource now into his potential Torrential. We draw into Gear Town, and that should be our game shot. So we decide to go for Space Typhoon. If he was sandbagging a Dust Tornado that long, he got us, but he would have got us if he had just used it earlier. We Typhoon the back row. We go ahead and set Gear Town, bring out the Gear Gajiltron, search Zombie World, flip the Gear Town, set the Zombie World, bring out the Ancient Gear Gajiltron Dragon, brain control the Dupe Frog, sacrifice the Dupe Frog for the Ancient Gear Beast before flipping the Zombie World. And then we decide to... What is this? Do we not have game here? Was there no way to get game? Hold on. If I had brain Dupe Frog, flipped Zombie Worlds, mited the other Dupe Frog, activated Mausoleum, normal summon this guy. Yeah, I guess we didn't have game no matter what. Okay. Well, this still breaks his board, which is kind of nice. Take the Swap Frog out, negate the Flip Flop Frog, attack for 3,000, and flip Zombie World so he can't Caius us or Chimera Tech us. So, pretty nice. Soul Exchange no longer working with the Caius. If he brings out Treeborn Frog to try and wall up, we can negate it permanently with Ancient Gear Beast. He decides to do that. So he brings out the Treeborn Frog, summons the Swap Frog, sends a Treeborn Frog. And you can see the power of Zombie World here. It is really shutting off his only power play here, which is the Soul Exchange and the Caius. Bounces the Swap Frog, sets, passes. Because he commit to the first Substitute early on, he didn't have the salvage for the follow-up play here. That would have worked really well with the Soul Exchange, obviously. But yeah, his early commitment kind of forced weird plays, I think. And it forced him to go for a salvage that he might have been able to use as to get more leverage, basically. I feel like he used his Substitute and his salvage, and it dealt with the same resources that just the Substitute would have dealt with. He sets 2 back row, passes back to us. I sort of have an inkling that one of them is a discard trap and one of them is a Space Typhoon type effect, or at least one of them is a Space Typhoon type effect to deal with the Zombie World. I'm kind of postulating Dust Tornado. Anyway, I go start battle phase. On the start of the battle phase, he pops the Ancient Gear Beast with the Regeki Break, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. He gets 2 tokens. We're going to go ahead and attack the Treeborn Frog, attack the token, and he decides not to stop either of these attacks. Obviously, he could have used more discard traps if he wanted to. I set Solemn Judgment, normal summon Dinah. Torrential is gone at this point, so there's nothing to really punish me for that. And this means even if he does Dust Tornado me, he has to pick between the Zombie World and the Solemn, and then the Treeborn can't come back under the Pachycephalo. So he Dust Tornadoes the Zombie World, which is fine, passes back to him. He has Soul Exchange. I let that resolve. He sacks for Caius. I Solemn the Caius, and that's his whole turn. So he's going to pitch Fishborg Blaster to try and special the Swap Frog, but he can't do that because Dinah's in play. So he adds it back to his hand. Now I know a couple of the cards in his hand. He's forced to just pass back to us. I top that Gear Frame. Not quite game. The Might didn't get used this game. I was considering if I could have used it at some point. Maybe I need to rewatch this game to see if the Might would have got used. But I top Gear Frame. I grab the Fortress. And then I attack. Either way, the Might would have gotten used here if I didn't top Gear Frame, because I would have been able to summon the Might and attack the token and then deal 42, and that puts him out of brain control range. So that would have been pretty good. Alternatively, I could have just held it to steal a Vanity's Fiend or a Caius to just win the game. I put him to 200 here with our boys. He's going to draw for turn, and it's going to be Mystical Space Typhoon. That's going to be all she wrote. So, yeah. Once again, just the power of having like a searchable sideboard card. Fantastic. The power of like reading your opponent's back row accurately and just sandbagging resources into it. Very nice. Making it as awkward as possible for the opponent. And you can see here we still had gas to follow up with. We still had Mausoleum out the Fortress, and we still had Marionette might steal a Caius. Even if he was able to like put together like a Soul Exchange Caius play, which is like kind of their power play, he would be so low that just stealing the Caius and attacking him for 4,900 would have been good enough to close things out. So yeah, really solid stuff. And yeah, he did side in the Vanity's Fiend, which is another reason to side in the Might, because it just takes the Vanity's Fiend, no questions asked, and then you can tribute it, or you can attack with it, go for game, whatever you want. I hope that these matches showcased exactly what I was trying to showcase with the deck. Against Frogs, against these types of decks, certain things can be easier, more difficult. It depends on the situations. But I've found that this deck has a pretty good matchup into the big three, which is kind of what everyone's like, I don't know. Everyone's like really obsessed with like these 3 decks. And it's weird to say this, but I think there are a lot of decks that do well against specifically those 3 decks. Like, I think Quick Draw is like Quick Draw Heroes, Quick Draw Amaryllis does really well into the 3 most played decks. I think Ancient Gear does really well into the 3 most played decks. I think that there are some combo decks maybe like zombies. You could build zombies, like instant zombies, in my opinion, is one of the best decks against the 3 most played decks. I think instant zombies is good against Blackwings, Vayu, and frogs in a lot of capacity. It might have a little bit of difficulty with specifically the hero frog variant, but even that you can kind of rip it apart with like Urbellums and Reapers and that sort of thing, and just like shred their hand and cook them that way. So I think that there are a lot of decks that have great matchups into the meta and dominate those decks. And I'm curious to see what dethrones those decks, because I know it's possible, and I know that a lot of these decks like Ancient Gear, a lot of these decks like I said, like Instant Zombies or Quick Draw Amaryllis are good enough to dethrone those decks and have good enough matchups to do it. It's just a matter of time, I guess. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you guys for tuning in. Once again, thank you for all your support, and if you guys want to see more videos like this, IRL deck profiles, whatever, all your subscriptions, all your memberships go a long way to making it happen. I did invest in a new camera for this. Hopefully we'll fix the settings a little bit, make it even nicer for the next time. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.